So what do you do after you receive divorce papers? So you get served with divorce papers, and what's next? So let's say your wife's filed for divorce and somebody shows up, hands you these papers. What do you want to do next? Well, I mean, the obvious thing, the first thing, you want to take a look at them, see what this says. You want to be looking through the paperwork, see what the claims are, see what her position is about things, see if it tells you anything about what it is that she wants in the divorce, if it says anything about custody or parenting time or child support or property or any of that kind of stuff. A lot of it can be very generic. The way Michigan law is, you're not required to put all the details in the divorce complaint, but you want to look and see if there's anything in there. You also want to take a look and see what this says. See if she has a lawyer. You know, does it say that there's an attorney? That tells you a little something about it, that she's hired an attorney. Are there any court orders? So you want to look through the paperwork. Does something look like it's an order and it was stamped by a judge and it says you have to do this or you have to do that? You know, a typical court order in a divorce case, in Michigan, a typical court order would be a restraining order, what's called a mutual restraining order, and it's on property, not on, it's not like a protection order or something, but it's a property order. And what it does is it says that you're not allowed to change bank accounts or beneficiaries or cancel health insurance or cancel any of these kind of things or change things around or sell assets or move assets or do any of those sorts of things. That's typically a mutual restraining order. That's a typical court order that gets entered at the beginning of a divorce case, so it would be included in the paperwork that you receive when you're initially served with divorce papers. You'd also want to look through this paperwork, see if there's any court dates in here. You know, depending on the county, like in Michigan here, Oakland County, for example, there's a court order, a document in the paperwork that says you have these 2 court appearances coming up. And there are ways out. It's not like it's going to be next week or something, although it could be. You know, there also could be a request for a hearing, what's called a motion, which is a written request. You file a motion with the court, schedule a hearing. There might be a hearing next week. So you want to look through all the paperwork, see if there's something, looks like telling you there's a court date, it has a date, it has a time, might have a Zoom hearing, explanation, a link. A lot of courts are doing things over Zoom still. Some of them are in person. So you want to be looking at all that information. Are there court orders? Are there court hearings? Are there dates coming up that you want to be aware of? Places that are mandatory, that you're required to attend a date and a time, either over Zoom or in person. So you want to be looking for those sorts of things in the initial paperwork and see what this says. You know, see what questions you're going to have about it. If there's court orders, you want to know what they say, see what they mean. There could be a restraining order, like I said. There could be a child support court order gets entered. There could be a custody parenting time order. There could be something called a status quo order. So in other words, when you file for divorce, there's advantages to filing first. One of the advantages are that you can get court orders signed without a hearing, what are called ex parte orders. Ex parte, just Latin for without a hearing. And so the person files, they serve you with papers. They're also serving you with a court order that's valid upon entry that could be requiring all sorts of different things. So you want to be aware of that. Take a real look at what you got here. You also can take a look online. Most counties in Michigan, you can look a court case up and see what's going on online. There's a whole thing going on with internet and the court website, and your court case is now on that website. Once you've been served with papers, you should be able to look up online and see what's going on with your case. It'll tell you the case number, it'll tell you the judge, it'll tell you if there's other court hearings. You know, in Wayne County, for example, there'll be a court hearing that's a few months out that's online that isn't in the paperwork that they give you. So you want to look for things like that. Or there could be a request for a hearing, there could be a motion hearing in whatever county your case is in, and that could be filed, and then there's a date online and there's a court hearing. I mean, a lot of times we meet with clients every day where we look up their case online and we find out there's a court hearing that they're not even aware of yet. So you want to be aware of all those things. You don't want to be finding out at the last minute. So you want to take a look, see what's online, see what's available, the information that's available on your court case, not just in the paperwork. There might be other things going on with it when you look at the court website and look up your case. And of course you can get help doing that too. I don't expect you to know how to do all this, but these are things you want to be looking for. These are tips. These are ideas. If you're going to meet with a lawyer, these are the kind of things to ask about with the paperwork that you're initially served. You know, you want to get some advice. One of the things you got to keep in mind with once you're served with divorce papers, first of all, if there's court orders that you've been served with, you have 14 days to object to those. If they're the typical kind of stuff that happens in a court case, in a divorce case, you don't have to really worry about objecting to them. If there's a mutual restraining order, you don't have to object to that. That's typical, it's mutual, It's telling you can't change bank accounts or change beneficiaries or cash things out or sell things, and neither of you are allowed to do that, and that's fine. You just would be able to do those things if you have an agreement going forward. Meaning there's a pending lawsuit, so now there's some restrictions going on because there's a divorce case going. So those things are fine. You just want to be aware of that. It doesn't mean you necessarily need objections. There could be a court order that goes too far or does something that's causing you trouble, and you just want to be aware that if there are ex parte orders, if there are court orders that were signed without a hearing, and you get served with those papers, you only have 14 days to object to those. So that's one of the timelines, one of the deadlines here that you're dealing with once you've been served with papers, is this idea of 14 days to object to court orders. And once you've been served with divorce and served with a divorce complaint and a summons, these other things, the summons will tell you have 21 days to respond. Depending on how you're served, you have either 21 or 28 days. So just assume it's 28. I mean, it's not like something's going to happen the next day after this deadline, but you want to be aware of these deadlines. So within 21 or 28 days, you have to file a response. A response is what's called an answer. So what the person that filed the divorce case served you with is called a complaint for divorce. You're required to file an answer. So it's mandatory. It's a lawsuit. There's rules, there's court rules that apply, there's statutes and laws that apply. There's a whole book of nonsense that applies to all this stuff of what sort of the rules of engagement are with divorces, just like any other lawsuit, whether it's personal injury or bankruptcy or probate court or whatever it is. They all have different sets of rules and different requirements. So your requirement in your divorce case, once there's a complaint filed and you've been served, is you then have 21 or maybe 28, depending, days to respond. You have to file an answer, meaning you file the paperwork with the court and you send a copy either to your wife or to her attorney if she has an attorney. And that's important. You don't want to miss this deadline. So you definitely want to get advice before this 21 days is up after you've been served. It's not the date that's listed on the paperwork. I know there's confusion about that. We talk to people about this a lot. There's a date when the divorce case was filed and when the summons was issued, and then there's an expiration date for the summons. That's different than how long you have to file an answer. A summons is issued and there's 90 days. You have 90 days to get somebody served with papers after you file a lawsuit against them with a divorce case. Same thing, you have 90 days to get them served. So you'll see dates on there about how they have until this date to have you served. The date of when you're served with these papers does not appear in the paperwork. You just need to know. If they handed it to you May 1st, you got till the 22nd to get an answer filed. Or, if the 22nd's a weekend, then you'd have the following Monday. But you got to get stuff going is the point. You have this 21 days to respond. You don't want to lose sight of that date and of those deadlines, because if you don't respond, if you don't file a reply or what's called an answer, then the other person can file a default against you, and then they can proceed without you, and they can pretty much do whatever they want as long as they're following the court rules and the laws. They can get a divorce done without you participating. And we hear those stories a lot too, where people just said, I don't know, I didn't respond, I never got it, whatever the reason is. Now they're divorced, and you can bet the divorce judgment doesn't say anything that they want it to say. It's going to all be in favor of their wife, right? Because it was her lawsuit, or husband, whoever you are in the situation. My name is Brent Boyer. I'm a divorce family law attorney. We represent only men, so our side is always seeing the perspective of the men. But whoever you are in the lawsuit, when you're not responding and then you get defaulted, you can bet the divorce judgment and the other paperwork is not going to say what you want it to say. They're just going to do kind of what they want at that point. So you want to get some advice, get a sense of what this all means, but don't be afraid to read through the paperwork initially. You'll be able to tell a lot just by reading through it. What's a complaint? What's a summons? Are there court orders? What do those say? Are there other notices? Look for those kind of things. Hopefully that helps.